And welcome everybody. I'm Renee Scott. For those of you who have not yet met me, I'm the new Mass Pollinator Network Coordinator. I took over for Rosemary in April. So it's been a lot of fun and I'm learning a lot, and it's really nice to meet some of you in different parts of my work. So welcome to the meeting for June. I wanted to share a couple things. And actually, Kim, I'm going to ask you, since you are co-host, I'm going to go back to my notes just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything to update. So if you see someone wanting to come in, would you just admit them? Thank you. Okay, so let me pop over to my notes. Right, first and foremost, I'm going to plug our summer conference again. We're really excited about it. It's the first year. There's a dedicated pollinator track. I think it's going to be really fun. Lots of different things, from green roofs as pollinator habitat to a panel on how agricultural lands can help protect and promote pollinator habitat. And let's see, a dark sky awareness presentation. Owen Wormser will be talking about converting lawns to meadows. Yuli Lorimer will be talking about his wonderful work with Native Plant Trust. So I really do hope you can all join. I'm going to pop the registration in the chat. This is utterly bizarre. I do not see my chat function.
Click the three dots over to the right.
Oh, there it is. That was so weird. It literally just. Okay, here is the registration for the summer conference. The exact schedule is going to be posted hopefully Thursday, fingers crossed. But the basic idea is on Monday through Thursday evenings, there will be 2 evening programs, one of which will be a pollinator track. And then Friday and Saturday, there will be online and in-person programs. So, and 1 ticket gets you in for everything. There's a sliding scale. I think it's going to be really great. So I hope to see you there. Please spread the word. I will be sending it out to the network as soon as we have the exact schedule, and I will encourage everyone to share that. Let's see what was next on my agenda. Oh yes, we still need volunteers at the summer conference. If anyone is willing to come at the table, we're going to have a lot of kids coming by. We're going to have the programming all set, so you don't have to actually create anything. You really just need to be there, be passionate about pollinators, like kids, and that's really all we ask. And if you volunteer for a minimum of 3 hours, you can get free admission into the whole conference. So if you're interested, I'm going to put my email in the chat. I would love to have your help. Email. So please let me know if you would be interested in helping. And then the last conference related item is that because of the conference, we won't have a July meeting. It is happening during that week, and it's just crazy. And we hope everyone comes to the online events, online programming that week. So the next meeting will be August 29th. So we can put that on your calendars. And that's the end of my conference updates. I wanted to open up the floor to anyone who has anything to share from your neck of the woods about anything that the rest of us might be interested in. Probably easiest if you use the raise a hand function, which is under the, let's see. Oh, reactions. Yeah, it's under reactions on the bottom bar. It's that little smiley face with the plus sign. If you click that, there's a raise your hand function, and I will call on you. And if for some reason I am not calling on you and no one's talking, just unmute and talk. So if anyone has anything to share, and then Elizabeth, I know because we're having that weird echo with you, if you want to put your reactions in the chat, and I'll make sure to keep an eye on it and I can read it out if I see it. Maria, yes.
Hi.
We just celebrated our first anniversary of the Andover Pollinator Pathway. And we had an open, 4 of our gardens were open to our network, not to the public in general, but to our greater network. And we had people come by to get ideas for their own yards. And we are in the process of working with Weston Nurseries to develop a plant. We think that they are going to grow some native plants for us for a plant sale for next spring. And we just got a request to include us as a case study on nature-based solutions in our climate action plan for the town of Andover.
That's terrific news.
So that's what we're up to.
Awesome. Can anyone top that? Again, if you're raising your hand and I'm not, oh, Susan, yes.
I certainly, now what happened? I certainly can't top that, but I saw the first fritillary in my garden a couple days ago, and that was very exciting. And I do have some bees of various sizes and a little bit of bumblebees, but not a whole lot, which is why you're here to speak, I think. So it was great to see at least one fritillary, because I have a lot of violets that I do not disturb. That's about all I can report. Nobody on my clover, the lawn has a lot of clover blossoms, and when I was growing up, that would have been full of bees, and I haven't seen anything, so that's not good. Okay. That's the report from Northampton area.
Don, yes?
Hi, Don Sutherland. I joined my town's Sustainable Green Committee and was able to have them put on their website a link to pollinator-friendly plants and native plants, also connecting them to Weston Nurseries. Just had it there as a town resource, as one education tool for the town. If they are directed to it, they'll see. It was just an effort to educate the town on the need for native plants.
Great, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if it's Katie or Kate, but you are next.
Yeah, Kate. I just wanted to report that the town of Conway at our annual town meeting in early June passed the non-binding resolution to designate Conway pollinator-friendly community. So, and that was really inspired by the many other towns who have done that, largely based on the efforts of people in this network. So just want to say thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Kate. If we don't have any other updates, give another few seconds. Alan, are you raising your hand?
Sure. Hi. We held ribbon cutting for our pollinator garden in Cold Spring Park in Newton today. We had the Parks and Recreation Commissioner, an assistant, and a little bit of press there. And between our pollinator garden, it's about 31 species now from Dr. Jagir's list. So I gave a little bit of a presentation on that and handed out brochures. We have this amazing spot next to the farmers market in Newton, so I'm able to hand out brochures as people pass the garden, and probably gave out 90 brochures between last week and this week. and talked with about 30 people about it. God, we have about 7 species in bloom right now, and it's looking much better than we expected to, having planted it just last October.
That's awesome. Send us pictures.
Will do. Send pictures. Maybe I'll send a copy of the brochure.
Great. Yeah.
At risk bumblebees yet, though, mostly impatiens and agressicolis.
Thank you, Alan. Any other updates? Okay, well, I am delighted to introduce Kim DeAndrade, which I'm sure many of you already know her, but she is going to lead us in a discussion. I think it's come up a lot. There's been a lot of anecdotal discussion about gardens being really quiet. Although, some people maybe feel like theirs is more active, but a lot of people are thinking they're just not hearing the buzz, seeing the insects. So Kim is going to give us a presentation, and we can talk about it and share our thoughts and see what's going on. And maybe even if anyone is, one of the ideas is maybe we could even start tracking using, using our own gardens and gardens around us, and try to figure out if there's a pattern to it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Kim, and I will be quiet now. Thanks.
I had to find the unmute. Does everyone see the slides? Thumbs up. Good, good. So first, the disclaimer that I am no expert. I am just somebody who loves native plants and has started off just gardening for wildlife with the National Wildlife Federation, and then gardening for butterflies, and then I discovered pollinators. So I am just a lay person who put together this little presentation for the Mystic Charles Pollinator Pathways. So there might be a couple people here who are here for the second time, but what I'm hoping is that this will be a sharing. This is a participatory presentation because I'm not the expert with the answers, but someone to kind of spark us all thinking through how we can bring our pollinator observations up to the next level. And so let's see, how do I make slides move? That didn't work. No. Oh, okay, clicking. So the idea is to create our own little projects. And what we need to be able to do is observe, obviously, maybe identify, maybe have a research question. That was my original idea. Although I'm having trouble coming up with my own research question, and I am more doing a tally. So that's one idea. How to collect our data, and then how to share our findings. So I'm going to go through those sections. So the first is to observe. Now, obviously, you have to observe the pollinators. And that can be either just by looking with our eyeballs. I have to put my glasses on to observe a pollinator up close. And I also have close focus binoculars. Are people familiar with close focus binoculars? It's a cool thing. John Muir Laws turned me on to a pretty reasonably priced one, the Pentax Papilio. And you really can see the close-up patterns on a butterfly, on a bumblebee. It really helps. Of course, our cameras can do the same thing, taking a picture and zooming in. And with bumblebees, there's a lot of reasons to take videos. If you're using the Beecology site, and I cannot see you all. I don't know if there's any way to see you all. No, I cannot see you all. So I don't know if you can see you all, or we're just on this picture. But so I would ask how many people have used the Beecology site. But the best way to use that is by having a little video of a bumblebee, and then you upload it to their site, and you can go slowly through your video. You can slow it down, you can stop in order to answer their questions to help you identify what bumblebee it is. So we have, these 3 ways of doing observations. And I'm just going to stop for a quick, see if anybody has a comment on what works for you in observing.
What is that site?
Beecology. I'll be able to send out the PDF of this presentation, and it will have all the links. So we're observing not just bees, but butterflies, flies, beetles, and wasps. Certain of the pollinators are more, they've got better PR, right? So we're more interested in the bees and the butterflies than flies. So there's observing. And another thing, I just backing up to observing, one thing we've noticed is that a lot of us gardeners are spending our time on the ground weeding, and we don't look up to see what's actually happening on the flowers. Or we're gardening, in the cool parts of the day when the sun's not on the flowers. And so we're not noticing. If you specifically go out on a walk to observe pollinators, you're probably picking the right time of day. But sometimes in our own gardens, we're not taking the time to look for the pollinators. We're busy with other things. So that's a big part of observation, is figuring out what time of day am I going to observe, and be sure to get out there. So then our next thing is to identify. And if you do not have the iNaturalist app, I also recommend it. It's the one I use the most for observing identifying plants and pollinators. Even sometimes when I know what they are, it's great to upload the item, because then it's on record for everyone. Because iNaturalist is a crowd sharing kind of citizen science type of site. I have not used BugNet, so I'll be interested if anybody has used that successfully. Field guides to pollinators. Heather Holmes has books on bees, and the Beecology site. The Beecology site, like I just mentioned, is great for bumblebees. And I just would give a little, oops, no, I'm really going to be in trouble because I don't know how to go backwards here. Oh. Let's see if we can go backwards. Okay. I want to give a little shout out to the Tufts Pollinator Guides, because they are Tufts Pollinator Initiative so this is, if you just Google Tufts Pollinator Initiative, they have all these different guides: bumblebees, solitary wasps, butterflies, hoverflies. Let's click on hoverflies. They don't have a lot of love going on out there. But look at that. We would think they were bees, right? So they have all these really great guides to different types of pollinators. So again, I'm participatory opportunity. Does anybody want to say anything in favor of any of these methods for identifying pollinators? I'm a teacher, so I got the wait time going for me. Oh, there's hands raised. Renee, can you call on people?
Yes, I think I saw Dale first.
I use iNaturalist, Um, I feel like I'm using 1% of its capabilities, and that's a question I have, is how to get to be adept with these different resources. But most of the time on iNaturalist, it suggests pictures, it suggests identifications that sound right, and then I pursue a little further and confirm.
Yep, that's how I do it. Was there another hand?
Susan, did you want to say something or was that a leftover hand raise?
Well, I was sort of on raising, but I also use iNaturalist a lot. My niece is a science teacher and she recommended it to me years ago and I love it. So plug for that.
Great, great, great. I do have this tiny video of bumblebee identification, which I hope is not, you know, if everybody here knows all more than me, and this is not some, and you already know this, I hope that you're not bored by it. They're pretty pictures anyway, but hopefully you'll find this helpful. The bumblebees of Lincoln, Mass.
Yeah, we can't hear anything. Is there a soundtrack to this?
There's little bugs. Do you hear bug sounds?
I do not, but maybe others do. But there aren't words we're missing.
No. It's just like cricket sounds. This is mostly what I see. If you've just entered, there is no soundtrack to this. There's lovely nature sounds, which apparently only I can hear. But the bee identification information is all printed on the screen. They're so furry, right? think I noticed that one if I saw it. So a whirlwind tour of bumblebees. I would love a little feedback on whether that was helpful or not, or any thoughts you have about it.
Does anyone want to weigh in? It was certainly beautiful. Amy?
Yeah, I loved watching it. Just, you know, I'm a little familiar with different kinds of bumblebees, but I don't see them that often. And it was really nice to see them so carefully described. Plus, I just love watching bees and flowers. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Susan? Go ahead.
Did you say Susan?
Yes, sorry, yes.
That's okay. I found it extremely helpful just to narrow down or expand just how many different types there are and a little bit about them, and that they're all in Lincoln, Mass. That really is helpful and fascinating to me. And I will try to, I noticed I've seen bigger ones and smaller ones in my garden, but I have a lot of work to do.
Thank you.
Sure.
Alan, before you speak, we have a question, Kim, about how the video can be accessed directly. Do you have are you able to drop that link in the chat?
I can put the link in the chat, yes, and it will also be on the PDF that we send out.
Great, awesome. Alan, I believe you were next.
Yeah, that was my point too. Thought it was helpful, but it'll be way more helpful the 10th time I watch it.
All right, Carol?
Hi, I think it was great. It was very helpful, but I would love to know the size of the different bees. Someone just mentioned size, and it made me think that if it was written, the sizes of the different bees, it would sort of make it maybe easier to look for them. But overall, I thought it was really, really helpful.
Yeah, and there's all those other categories of bees that can be very, very small. Bumblebees catch our eye because we can really see them. They're, a size good enough to see. But sometimes those tiny pollinator bees, we don't even see them if we don't really stop and look. I mean, I think before I was involved in all this, I just didn't give them any thought at all that they were really bees and pollinators. So thank you for that feedback, and glad it was a little helpful. So that's identifying. And now, if we want to go beyond tallying, if we want to create our own individual research questions, what questions might we want to look? We've got the whole summer ahead of us. We could pick a few plants types and just see who visits them. We can note actually which plants don't have pollinators. Like sometimes I think, well, what's, I look and I see there's no pollinators, so I move on, but that's information also. If we know where there's a cultivar and a straight species, we could actually zoom in on that and try to note in our own yards. Like I think I have a Penstemon Husker Red, so that must be a cultivar. And then I have 2 other Penstemons, a straight species digitalis and the hairy Penstemon. So that would be super interesting to compare those 3. Just in general, what bumblebees are we seeing? So far, all I can be sure I'm seeing is the basic one. But you never know. If I don't look closely, I'm not going to know if they have more bands of yellow on them. What is the best time of day to observe pollinators? So these are some questions I thought of, and I'm super curious if anybody has an idea of something else that we could add to this list.
So if people have ideas, you can raise your hand, you can throw it in the chat. I'm happy to read them out if they come up through the chat. Time of year. That's good. Actual numbers you're seeing, maybe, and like individual, it's hard because they move around, but
Yeah, right. That's a good one, since people are wondering, are there less this year? So that would be worthwhile.
Amy mentioned urban gardens compared to rural gardens, pooling our observations for sure.
Maria?
Well, I think I'm very curious about which plants that are normally pollinator havens are not blooming this year or blooming less, or, I mean, I've noticed some plants, I don't know. Well, first of all, I've noticed a lot fewer pollinators in general, but some of the plants did not blossom this year, did not bloom this year. And I wonder if that is having any effect on, so I'd be curious as to what plants are not blooming.
Well, and that reminds me of the importance of getting to see the plant right at the peak of its bloom. I was reading in Heather Holmes, and there's different times in the flowering of a plant that the bees are more or less interested in the flower. But my 9-bark, I just happened to go out one day when apparently it was in the height of its bloom, and it was covered in little tiny bees, which naturalists identified as mining bees. We'll see if that's confirmed by other folks. But if I had, now the blossoms are all totally past. If I had not gone out that day, and it might have been a few days before, could have been a few days after, but if I had not gone out right at that time, I wouldn't have seen a thing because the blooms are past. So we really have to time our observations for the flowering.
We have a couple other comments in the chat. One relating to the weather, rain or damp or temperature. And then another one, plotting, mapping in time and space in relation to microclimates and other special units.
Right, and so we don't, I don't go out when it's rainy. I don't even go out when it's hot and humid. But what if we did go out just to confirm, oh yeah, the bees are not out when it's raining. I was actually picking blueberries the other morning when it was a little bit misty, and there were bumblebees floating around my spider wort, and trying to find something in the blueberries, but there are no flowers there. So, we might have a preconceived notion that they don't come out in the rain, but if we don't go and check, we might not know. So anyway, so research questions or simple tallies. That's something to consider, what we want to research or observe, and how to do that. We've got clipboards, checklists, nature journaling. That's something I do. And what are we going to record in our record? Certainly, we want the time of day. We might want the weather. We might want the plant. I did not give a little talk because I'm not that good on it, as whether the bees are after nectar or pollen. The Bee Ecology website does have that to help you understand if what the bee is actually doing. Because you know there's some bees that are doing things on flowers, but they're not actually pollinating the flower. But for me, that's like bee observation 102. I'm not quite there yet, but some of you might be. So I do have, and you'll have these links, a bunch of different examples of different ways that I found on the internet of people who were collecting data. And I'll show you what I've started. I'll show you that at the end. Sharing the findings. You can share straight onto iNaturalist. Those of you who use it, you just click the share button. You can also join a project. At this time, MAPN doesn't have a project, but the Mystic Charles Pollinator Pathways does. And so anybody who's within the Mystic Charles kind of Eastern Mass neighborhoods can sign on to our project, which just means anytime you share, that data will also get pulled aside to be listed under the Mr. Charles Pollinator Pathways project, whether it's a pollinator plant or an actual pollinator. Share on the Beecology site. Share on Facebook groups what you're seeing. Future, I put Mrs. Charles Pollinator Pathways, but future MAPN meetings, we can come back and, you know, share at the end of the summer, you know, what were our observations. Any other ideas of ways to share the results of our observations?
I'm actually wondering if people would be interested in doing a MAPN project on iNaturalist. I would be happy to get that going if that felt fun. I mean, if 2 people are going to do it and it doesn't really matter, then we don't have to. But if it's something people are excited about, it could be interesting.
Yeah. So this is a page from Heather Holmes' book, Pollinators of Native Plants. This is what gave me the idea to make a very simple checklist. And then there are more complicated ones that have dates and which thing did you see and all kinds of things like that. Having on your clipboard some of the things like the Tufts Pollinator Initiative, some of their guide lists that you could actually check which one you saw, where and when. This is looking at numbers of pollinators. Somebody had even suggested the numbers of pollinators. So actually putting little dots about numbers. Again, kind of a tally. Some were very complicated. I couldn't even, that was like way beyond me. But just so you have I wanted to give people a sense of all the different things that are out there for lay people. You know, it's part of kind of citizen science efforts that are happening around the country. And this is what I've decided to use. And I've got 3 observations or 4 observations so far. I'm just holding it up to the screen. 4 observations so far. And I'm realizing that one has to make the time to go out there and look and see what I see. I did put, will be in the slides, the close-up binoculars. And that is the presentation. I'm going to stop the share, get back so we can see everybody. And thank you. giving the presentation last week to the Mystic Charles Pollinator Pathways got me to actually put pen to paper and to start recording my observations. So I hope I've inspired at least a couple of you to do the same.
Kim, Carol has a question about what type of binoculars.
Those are the Pentax Papilio binoculars. And that they're called close focus. I use them for bird watching also, but they'll just get you closer to bees. And I can put a link for that in the chat also.
Maria, did you have a question or was
I
that?
do. You had on your chart that you did, could you just either go back or just, you had plant and then you had date, time, and you had weather, and then you had two other things. What were the other?
Oh, yes. Plant, date, time, weather, the pollinator, and notes.
Oh, okay.
So I
Thank you.
put 9 bark and the date and time. I just wrote sunny, hawthorn mining bee. And in the notes, I put hundreds. Hundreds
Okay.
might be, maybe it was 100, but they were just all so flying around. You know.
Okay. All right. Got it. Thanks.
Sure.
That's great.
So, I mean, I know anecdotal evidence is not always, certainly not scientific, but do people in general feel like they're not seeing as much? I certainly feel that way. But I also, the weather's been cooler and it hasn't, it's been rainy. I haven't been out in my yard as much as I often am. So yeah, it's hard to say. Amy, yes.
So a couple things. I do feel like I'm seeing fewer insects this year. I have a huge old non-native rose that has hundreds of blooms, finished a week or two ago, and it's usually full of bumblebees. And I just saw a handful. And I feel like it's like I cheer every time I see a bumblebee because I'm seeing so few. On the other hand, I knew we were going to talk about this tonight. So I wrote to Rob Gajir yesterday because I know he's like really seriously tracking everything he sees and has other people doing the same. So I asked him what he's noticed this year, and this is what he said. I have observed lower numbers in some locations, but higher numbers in others. Diversity has not changed. In fact, I have seen higher numbers of Bombus vagans and Fervidus at many locations, which I attribute to my introduction of plants that they prefer. So this is Amy speaking now. I find that really heartening that it makes a difference to plant those plants, that it really does help those bees. And then back to what Rob was saying, I currently have rose and purple flowering raspberry in bloom at my house, and the numbers and diversity are the same as last year. A higher perplexus to impatiens ratio, which is good. That said, I'm seeing much less activity on my prunella for some reason. The freezing temperature in early spring, it was warm and then dropped, similar to a few years ago, likely explains the lower numbers in some locations. So I'm also thinking, the weather's different in different parts of the state. There are places where, there's a hard freeze, but up on a hillside and down in the valley, it stays warm. So I think some buds froze in some areas and didn't in others. So anyway, that's kind of a variety of reactions.
Thanks, Amy. Carol?
I'm wondering how we could evaluate the impact of our neighbors using pesticides, whether it's something that would be quickly observed or whether, over time. I often wonder that. I mean, in my neighborhood, there's several people, and I have 2 neighbors who are fairly close who use pesticides. And the first year I lived here, I had a brand new garden, native garden mostly, and I planted swamp milkweed, and I had so many monarch caterpillars. I mean, so many on that one plant. It was amazing. I was worried that I wouldn't have enough to feed them. And the next year, none. 0 last year. So I don't know if it's like, if I'm killing pollinators by having native plants in my yard that attract them because my neighbors use pesticides. So I wonder if that's something we could track at all.
Thank you, Carol. Alan?
Yeah, hi. Just about all the native plant gardeners that I talk to in Newton, anecdotally report lower numbers. That certainly seems that way to me in my garden. Although the biggest question I have about that is how do we really keep track in a way that is objective? I don't know that just going out and taking notes, I saw this, I saw this, I saw that. How that creates an objective record that we can compare one year to another. But I also want to offer a speculation that the last summer's drought might also have had a big impact. I did a pollinator safari last summer with Nick Dorian, Tufts Pollinator Initiative, and he pointed out that the bumblebees who were seeing all the bombus impatiens were much smaller than usual, which he attributed to the lack of nectar and pollen to the usual degree. And there's also research that shows that when bumblebees are smaller, they can't fly the same distances and that they don't reproduce as successfully. So, I'm guessing that might have an impact too, but it's just speculation at this point.
I wonder, sort of related to that is, this past winter was just not very cold at all and there was no snow, but then we had that terrible freeze, at least in Eastern Mass. So anything overwintering, it just had potentially no insulation, lacking in snow. And I wonder if a lot of them died. Again, I don't know how many overwinter versus that would impact, but. So we are closing in on 8. Carol and I actually, and I don't want to cut this short, if other people have things to say, definitely this is a good conversation. And I think one big question is, do we want to try to do something as a group spread out across the state that would be really impactful? And I don't even know exactly what that would look like, but it's something to mull over. And if anyone has a great idea of how we could do that, then, always feel free to email me. I'm happy to talk it through with you and see if we can make it work.
You just made me think of, the birders do their counts. They're like 4th of July counts. The butterfliers have counts. And so maybe that's something to think about, like a day when everybody counts. I don't know if we're ready for that.
Yeah. I am actually, there's a great group in Somerville called Earthwise Aware. I mean, they're in Eastern Mass, but headquartered in Somerville, where I am. And my friend runs it. And I wonder if I could pick her brain about this. She's all about citizen science and she might have some thoughts for us. Kate, yes.
Hi, let's see if my start that. I'm having UMass do a pollinator study in my yard. So I'm going to ask Laura, who's running the pollinator study, some of these questions about best time of day or particular days, what kind of weather, so that I can pick her brain. I'm also going to they inventoried our yard already. A team of 3 people came out and looked at every pollinator in our yard, in our 2.5-acre yard. So I'm hopefully going to get a list from her so that I'll be able to start looking for those same pollinators. But yeah, I'll ask her some of those, I took screenshots of those things and you'll be sending out a PDF. So I'll ask her some of those questions since they're researchers.
Great.
Thank you. Please report back. Carol, do you want to just do so Carol is on the policy committee, NOFA policy committee, and is a dedicated pesticide regulation or working on pesticide regulation. And she and I have been sort of throwing out ideas of ways maybe we can try to, it doesn't all have to be state level. Maybe there can be some town level or work state level, work across the state on some initiatives. So I'm going to turn it over to Carol. And we have a little plug for everyone who might be interested in joining us. Carol?
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I think everyone knows that the Pollinator Network is part of NOFA. And NOFA has a policy committee that there's several of us, Renee and I and Don, who's on the call, Sutherland, are on it. I don't know, I don't want to miss anybody, but and we talk a lot about pesticides, and we work on on pesticide legislation. And NOFA has a policy page that maybe Renee maybe you could put that in the link, and people may have seen already all the legislation that NOFA has endorsed this year, but it's worth taking a look at it and at the policy page and seeing all the legislation that NOFA's endorsed. And there was a hearing, and I think there were people on this call who were at the hearing and testified or listened. And, year after year, we testify and we fight for our legislation, and it doesn't get passed. So Renee and I have been talking about what, other kinds of organizing we can do as well that could influence, end up having influence on the state level. There's plenty of things you can do on the legislation, like, asking your legislators to co-sponsor it, asking your city or town governing bodies to endorse legislation and let your legislators know, if you're in an organization, no matter how small, you can sign on and endorse. And just for other ideas, you can always talk to me or Renee. But besides that, we've just been talking about all the other possible things that we could do, because there's so much experience in this network, in this group, and people belong to organizations who've developed literature and written letters and worked in their communities to change practices. And if we could collect that and use it, as a group, we could be really even more powerful than we are. So we want to start a group, under, I guess it would be under this group, or I don't know, it doesn't matter. But anybody would be welcome to join, and we want to hear what other people think we could do that would have an impact. We could, I know that there was an effort on, I don't know if it's still going on, to educate garden centers and change some of the practices at garden centers. I know it was going on out here in Western Mass, but that could be a big statewide project. Or to me, educating landscapers could be huge, because landscapers have so much influence over what happens in people's yards, because people who do hire landscapers have no clue of what they're doing, as you probably all know. And so they hire landscapers who tell them that they have to use pesticides, and they have a list of 10 plants that they plant, and none of them are native. So we could do a lot, and I'm sure there's many ideas that people have. So I guess all we want to let people know is that this is happening, and to, I guess, contact me or Renee if you're interested, and we'll pull a meeting together and we'll see where it goes. And whatever people who come to a meeting decide they want to do, that's what we'll do. You want to add anything to that, Renee?
Oh, that was great. Yeah, I put my email in the chat. Carol, if you want to add yours as well.
Yeah, I'm going to right now. I just also want to say that I'm a member of Climate Action Now Western Mass, the Regenerative Farming, Forest, and Food Systems group, and we also work on pesticides. And just if you're interested in that, we have a. I'll try to put our. Are we ending like in a minute? I'll try to put our website, because we have a lot of information on our website, on the Climate Action Now website.
Thank you. Yeah, and worst case, you can just email it to me, and I can include it in.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like often get into our boxes of like, oh, I'm really care about pollinators. Oh, I care about pesticides, but it's so related. I mean, anything that pesticides are a huge contributor to pollinator decline. So we would love to have some active, excited brainstormers to join us. So, oh, I see people are saying you're interested. If you wouldn't mind, just because I don't want to miss anything in the chat. If you've said you're interested, if you wouldn't mind just emailing me or Carol, I can put my email again. That would be awesome. So I want to make sure I don't miss anybody.
Well, and just a quick reminder that people can save the chat if you know how to do that. I did put in the link for the binoculars, the video, and Beecology. So you can just save the chat and you'll have that immediately.
And I will send out here's my email. Okay. I will send out the video recording, the meeting recording shortly, maybe hopefully tomorrow if I can get my act together. So just reminders that we're not having a July meeting because of the summer conference. So please come to the summer conference. Even if you can attend everything online. In person is going to be fun on Saturday as well, but there's going to be a lot of really awesome information. So it'd be great to see you there. And are there anything we've missed? Anyone wants to say? Kim, thank you so much. It was really wonderful to get that insight into really paying close attention to what's around us. And if people have some great idea about, Kate, I think what you were going to reach out to the UMass group. I hope I'm not misremembering who it was, but whoever was going to reach out to UMass. And if anyone has other ideas about ways we can start tracking pollinator decline, please let me know, and I'm happy to share with the group. So thank you, everybody. It was lovely to see you. Have a great, I guess, pretty much summer, right? See you all in August.
Bye.
Bye.